So this is Die Another Day versus Quantum of Solace, and most people would argue these are the two worst films in the series, so I decided why not compare them. And the first is the gun barrel, which I've talked about more in the top 10 gun barrels, but I think Die Another Day is really cool, unlike Quantum of Solace, which I personally think is the worst gun barrel, mainly because of the editing, but we'll get to that later in the video. The next is the pre-title sequence, and this is really tough for me because I think these are two of the better pre-title sequences in any of the Bond films, and so expect when I rank them both to be very high on the list. But as of right now, I'm going to go Die Another Day because I think it's longer, and again, the editing of Quantum of Solace is so weak, and I think I love gadgets, and I love how Die Another Day incorporates the gadget. I know they go a bit too hard with it at times in the film, but I think right here it was a nice touch, and I think it was very well done. I love how it introduces the villain and the main henchman of the film, and overall I think it's a very well done scene. The next is the title song and title sequence, and this is the first time ever that I think one of the theme songs is better, but one of the title sequences is better. And the theme song, although it's a very bad theme song, goes to Die Another Day because Quantum of Solace has the worst theme song ever, but I can't really fault that much with the title sequence itself. I think it's very cool and well done, but the title song is so monumentally bad. I wish they used one of the rejected theme songs, which I've talked about in the top 5 rejected theme songs, how I think Quantum of Solace really screwed this up, but I think the title sequence itself is very cool and one of the better ones in the series. This is the Q branch scene. I think Quantum of Solace, I don't really remember having one, really. If someone can point that out to me, please. But I think Die Another Day has one of the best ones in the entire series. I love the dialogue between the two. I think the gadgets are just so ridiculously good. I love the ring, and it was very close to being an honorable mention in my top 10 gadgets, but I think it's overall a great scene. Love it. Anyways, next is the Bond girl, and I think it definitely goes to Die Another Day. Yes, the Bond girl in Quantum of Solace is, independent and whatever, but I think they ruined that at the end of the film with them getting together, I guess you could put it. So, yeah, that's basically all I can say about the two. This is the Henchmen, and although Die Another Day doesn't have a great henchman, it's definitely better than Elvis from Quantum of Solace. So, again, it goes to Die Another Day. Again, I'm not saying Die Another Day is a great film, it's just, it's better than Quantum of Solace. And I read a Wikipedia article, and this is what they said about Elvis. I thought it was hilarious. Taubman wanted to make Elvis as colorful, as edgy, and as interesting as possible, with one of his suggestions being the bowl cut. Almeric and Taubman improvised a backstory for Elvis. He is Dominic's cousin and once lived on the streets before being inducted into Quantum. He called Elvis a bit of a goofball. He thinks he's all that, but he's not really. He's not a comic guy. He definitely takes himself very seriously, but maybe by taking himself too seriously, he may become friendly. If you got any of this from the movie, you are a god.
Elvis is a weird character. He is
Clip about Elvis.
Something else, and it makes Mathieu, who is my king in the film, Dominic Green, it makes him shine.
Next is the main villain, and again, Quantum of Solace, because they have such a shit villain, it goes to Die Another Day. I mean, Quantum is a very cool, I guess, idea, and I guess it's like the modern day version of Spectre, which is, I think they botch in so many levels. Next is the main plot, and I'm gonna go with Die Another Day, not because Quantum of Solace has a really bad plot, it's just because it's so poorly explained and showed that it's hard to follow, and therefore it isn't that good. And you just saw Felix Leiter, and this again, point for Quantum of Solace because, yeah, they have Felix Leiter, good for them. I'm going to talk about two things right here, and they're both points for Quantum of Solace, and that is the stunts as well as how well they date. And I think Die Another Day, everyone can agree, dates the worst of any Bond film, and this was the director's answer to a Bond stunt, but it's arguably the worst CGI in the history of any film. So it really takes away any excitement from the scene at all. So I'm going to give both the points to Quantum of Solace because of how poorly done it is. Next is the vehicle chase. It's time for a montage, and I'm going to give it to Die Another Day. Although Quantum of Solace, granted, it has a very, very cool vehicle chase in the opening title sequence, I think so does Die Another Day, so I think those two cancel out, really, even though Quantum of Solace is kind of better. But this scene is just so much fun. I think it's arguably the best scene of either of these two films. It's one of the reasons that I enjoy Die Another Day more than Quantum of Solace, and actually a few other Bond films. I would rather watch, I'm not saying this is a better film, because it's not, but I'd rather watch Die Another Day than, like, Dr. No, because I think Die Another Day is such a fun film to watch. I love campy films. I love Roger Moore. And I think this is just so much fun to watch. Yes, it's stupid, but it's enjoyable. That's the whole point of a movie, is to have fun. I know people diss this film for being extremely unrealistic, and even this scene is ridiculous, but I just think it's so much fun. So, I don't get why people hate it as much as they do. I feel like people don't give it a chance because of some of the stupid things, like here, the invisible car. I like it, though. I think it's a bit overboard, but I like what they're trying to do, how they're trying to innovate it every time. Forgot to mention that was the Bond henchman fight, and it goes Die Another Day. This is the Bond villain fight, and I've talked about the Die Another Day one already in a past video, so I'm just going to say, although this is a very weak final fight, I think it's cool, but the editing is so bad, it takes away what could have been one of the better Bond villain fights in the entire series, and although it's average because of the editing, I think it would have been a great final confrontation and would have really made this movie better, really, and I think that's a major fault from the director and editors. We're going to talk about the score as well as the Bond performance and the overall action, and all three, I think, go to Die Another Day. Although Quantum of Solace has some very good tracks, I think the score itself isn't that incredible. Like, I think the only really good track is the opening scene track, whereas in Die Another Day, every, I think, track is equivalent to this one, if not better, and that is, I think, what the score should be, a really, constant flow of very good tracks. Like in A View to a Kill, all the tracks are pretty solid, and I think that is what it should be. Bond performance, they both give a pretty average performance. I think for both of these Bonds, their other films were better. It's just, I prefer Brosnan, so I'm going to give it to Pierce Brosnan. The last is the more overall action, and if you don't like Die Another Day, one thing you can agree with is that Die Another Day has some of the biggest action scenes of any Bond film, so again, it goes to Die Another Day. Next is the random Bond fight, and as I was just talking about, Die Another Day has a lot of them, and I think the biggest of which is this sword fight. It actually does not need to happen. If you cut this scene, you aren't missing anything except for a very solid and one of my favorite fights in the entire series. But it's so unnecessary. I think it's very well done, though, and credit to the director for actually making a scene that's exciting. Mark Foster, learn a little. But I just think this is a very cool scene with an iconic moment with, Pierce Brosnan jumping onto the chair, and overall, I just think it's a great overall scene. And performance is pretty good for both, so I'm going to call it a tie. One common thing I've noticed in both the films, though, is there is no point for her being in the field. She's just talking to Bond, and it's really pointless, and I think is a major plot hole to both of these movies. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense for Die Another Day, but it doesn't make any sense for Quantum of Solace. Last thing is the end credits scene. I think it definitely goes to Quantum of Solace, and one of the best, I think the best shot scenes of the entire movie, and I think it's a very good bookend to the Vesper story, and Casino Royale, I think it's just very well done. The final score is Quantum of Solace 7, and because the points are doubled, Die Another Day gets 30. So yeah, it's a blowout. So yeah, even against the worst films, Quantum of Solace is terrible. This is the little N scene I give you guys at the end. I'll see you guys next week. See you then.
Get me some atropine. We're losing hands. Stand by. Clear. I'm checking out. Thanks for the kiss of life.